Hey friends, it is Christmas tomorrow, which is a really good thing or a really bad thing, depending on where you stand in terms of how you feel about Christmas. It's filled with so many family members and people, and that can be really exciting or really stressful, depending on how you engage with your family, how you engage with crowds, and also just your political perspectives and how that kind of manifests in terms of your level of activism or not. So one thing I've done is, I come from such a huge family, and it's so important to be able to keep your peace of mind during this festive season. And so I just wanted to share some things that I use in order to keep sane, not only during Christmas, but especially during Christmas. Essentially any environment where you have to engage with family, especially if you're from a culture where there are very clearly defined rules and how you engage. You can't engage as equals. There actually is a hierarchy because of age and gender, etc. One thing that's super important to know in any setting is that you really don't have to defend your position or defend yourself. Dinner table talks are the worst. They're quite tense because you have that racist uncle who's saying things, or you have that aunt who's homophobic, and you want to say something because you might identify with a group, or you just have an affinity for human rights. And it can get tense. And I think one thing to know is that you don't have to defend your position. If you don't defend your position, it doesn't mean that you are complicit or that you're in agreement with that person. It's so important to put your mental and spiritual health first. So if you know that entering into a debate about homophobia with your uncle at the Christmas table is going to leave you in tears, then you'd rather not do that. You'd rather look after yourself first. Because ultimately, the biggest form of activism is self-care and joy. And if debating is a form of self-care and joy, that is important then that you should do it. If it's not, if it's actually a form of grief and stress and trauma, then leave it. I think to also remember is nobody's ever realized they were homophobic and then reformed through being shouted at across the table or disagreed with or through debating somebody, while trying to eat. It doesn't happen like that. It's also not your duty to be a spokesperson for any kind of group. If you're on the queer spectrum, if you are black or brown, it isn't your job to defend any group that you're either a part of or that you have an affinity to, or because you are an ally. It's not your job. It's something obviously you choose to do. But I think it's important to really recognize that it is a choice. You have to center yourself and your well-being. So if being a spokesperson or defending a group will make you feel better, then that's important to do. But again, if it's going to make you anxious and upset, you've actually not helped anybody. You also don't have to enter debates. So if somebody wants to engage you, if they say, you're of this particular group, what do you think of this opinion? You can just say no comment, you can smile, you can keep quiet, you can say I don't have an opinion, you can say you don't want to share, or you can share if you want to. But it is important to know that every single action has a reaction, and it's so important to manage your actions rather than other people's reactions. So if you choose to not engage in debate, there will be a reaction from whoever asks you. If you choose to engage in a debate, there will also be a reaction. So no matter what you do, there's going to be a reaction, and you have to make peace with knowing that you can't control that. And that's a really hard thing to do. That's something I struggle with. I really enjoy taking ownership of my decisions, but I find it difficult to accept people's reactions. I wish they were different. I wish they were more compassionate. And sometimes they're not. And that's just that. People have free will, and that's just something we have to make peace with, is that we're all so different. And if we don't make peace with that, it's really frustrating. And again, it only hurts you if we can't come to terms with the fact that we all have such different paradigms and experiences and reference points. And the truth is, nobody thinks they're wrong. Nobody is trying to be wrong. Nobody is trying to be hurtful. People who are trying to be hurtful have been hurt themselves. And that's a completely different issue. But even in, let's say, your uncle's homophobia, they genuinely believe what they're saying. That is their reference point. It is a reference point from fear, and that can't be tackled with a debate across a dinner table. So you really have to think about the fact that as right and as earnest and as compassionate you feel you are, the person with an opposing view to yours feels the same way. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't be activists. That doesn't mean we shouldn't stand up for people. It means how we approach people. We have to consider that everybody treats themselves and their opinions with the same respect and reverence that you treat yours with. So that helps in terms of bringing a bit of compassion into how we engage, if we choose to engage. And then also just one about spending. I think it's a bit late if you've bought gifts. At this point in the game, yeah, you would have bought gifts already. But I think it's really important to stay in our financial lanes this Christmas, and to not feel overwhelmed or pressured. There's a lot of power in saying, I cannot afford this, it's not in my budget. And that's something I'm coming to terms with. I think I get anxious and I feel embarrassed, to be honest, about not being able to keep up with friends. I can't go to X brunch, I can't go to Y club because I don't have the money. You can feel inadequate, but there's nothing inadequate about that. And also, no one's built any kind of wealth through living beyond their means. So it really is such an important thing for your health, financial health, spiritual and mental health, to be honest with what you do have to give. And that also goes with, I think, your emotional capacity. We spend a lot of money this season. We spend a lot of time and energy and emotions invested into people. You might not be emotionally available. So similarly with money, it's important to be honest and say, at least to yourself, if not with others, I don't have the capacity to absorb your energy or to absorb your problems or your emotional baggage. So those are just some tips that I use. I use these on a daily basis, but I think for Christmas, it is so important so that you can kind of protect your energy and your health, because it is it's a season that demands so much energy. Enjoy Christmas if you are a Christmas person. If you opt out of Christmas, enjoy that opt out. Whatever you choose to do it well. Let me know if you agree, disagree, have a different perspective of how to manage relationships in this hectic festive season.